Hey everyone, it's Elise. Welcome back to my channel where I like to talk about all things personal finance. And since 2013, I have dedicated myself to mastering my personal finance so that I can avoid struggling with money in my adult life. This has involved several things. Like in my past, it involved me paying off my student loan debt because I didn't want to be tied to it for 20 years. It involved me setting up a nest egg for my retirement so that when I knew I wanted to leave my job, that part of my golden years would be taken care of. And at this moment in my present, it is involving me either building a six-figure business or acquiring a six-figure business in the near future. All of this has required that I sacrifice. And today is no different. I do follow a strict budget. And although my budget does allow for some fun, I sometimes struggle with the fact that, you know what, my money is not going as far as I wanted to. And some examples of that include, like, nowadays, as opposed to a few years ago, I can't afford to get things like facials and massages. And I find that going out to restaurants, even though I still do that, like, the money does not go as far as it used to. Eating out is very expensive. And sometimes that's the reality. The money is just not gonna stretch as much as you wanted it to, or as much as it used to, not too far behind ago, right? And also let me know in the comments, what things do you wish that you could do that you're finding that you can't do? And that could be anything from taking yourself out to eat more often, going to the movies as often as you used to, going on vacation 2 times a year. Maybe you can only go on vacation once a year. There are things that are arguably, I think if we were honest with each other and had a little powwow to ourselves, we'd be like, yeah, the money is just not going. And as far as it used to, and that is the reality. But I have come to realize, and I'll tell you why I realized that in a moment, that finding yourself or ourselves in that situation does not necessarily mean that we are bad with money. And I came to that because in watching one of my reality TV shows, because in addition to loving YouTube, I love reality TV, I came across this show called Selling the City, where it's about real estate brokers and real estate agents in New York City. And the head real estate broker in charge, it was like the last episode, last or the second to last episode in the season, and she was giving advice to a friend, and she was trying to make her friend feel better. And at the end of her dialogue with her friend, she said, "You're not poor, you're just broke." And when she said that, I immediately was like, I've never heard of it spoken in those terms before, but I think she has a point. Sometimes, could it be that you just don't have the extra money available because that money is tied somewhere else? Or could it be that you don't have enough money in the beginning? Because if those are 2 different situations and they have to be approached in 2 different ways. In order to figure out which one you are, there's some investigation that is required. And I came up with 5 signs that will help you audit your true place in your financial situation. Number 1, your net worth is increasing. In order to calculate your net worth, you're gonna take the summation of all of your assets, and you're gonna take the summation of all of your liabilities. You're gonna subtract that summed liability number from your summed assets number, and that's gonna give you your net worth. Most people calculate this at least once a year, but you'll see on YouTube, some people calculate it as often as a month, and it's probably because it helps them stay on track. But if you see year after year that the number is getting higher, that is a point where you can go ahead and pat yourself on the back, because that is proof that even though you may not feel like you're doing well financially, on paper you are. And if you have receipts, then you can kind of take a breath. I know for me, when I started, the first year, it was almost at negative 200,000, right? Because I had a lot of student loans. Then the second year, it was like at negative 140,000. And I think the first year it ever turned positive, I was at positive only 5,000. But for me, the trend was better. And that's sometimes all it takes is for you to see the trend. Let me know in the comments how you've been doing, how long you've maybe been doing it, and if you are seeing progress, because if you have, then that's a sign. Number 2 is that all your bills are paid each and every month. And I'm not talking about extras. I'm just talking about what you need to cover your overhead that is paid, and that is paid relatively easy. If that is possible for your financial situation, I think that is something that can be counted as a blessing, because the reality is right now, that is not something that everybody can say. Their money does not travel the whole 30 days. it falls short around day 20, day 21, and it doesn't count unless it travels all the way into the next month, right? So if you're finding that at minimum your bills are paid, you can consider that as half the battle. Number 3 is that you have non-liquid assets. Keyword being there, non-liquid, which means you cannot touch it. It's not something that you can use to go and get your facials and get your massages and go out to eat. This is something that you have invested in, but you cannot pull out the money right away. First thing that comes to mind is real estate. If you are a homeowner, you signed your name on the dotted line for 30 years for an asset, but you can't just take money out that asset. And I'm talking under normal circumstances. You don't want to. But in 30 years, once you've paid the 360th payment, now you can go ahead and sell that house, and whatever the future value of it is available to you. But it's not like you can take money from the walls of your house and go spend it on something. Another asset that is considered non-liquid is your retirement account, specifically your 401k. That is pseudo government involved, whereas they give you penalties if you go into that, because it is theoretically not supposed to be touched until your golden years. That doesn't help you right now though. You can have a high amount in your 401k, but if you are decades from touching it, it's not liquid for you. And again, you cannot use that to go on vacation. Another thing that is non-liquid but an asset is if you own a business. Now, if you started this business from scratch, you're gonna have to get evaluated. But once you can prove that your profit and loss statement every year comes as a profit, you can sell that business. But more than likely, you're not going to want to sell that business because that business is your baby, or it's not time, or you want it to grow some more so you can get more money from it, or you enjoy doing it. But at the end of the day, that business is an asset, whether you built it up on your own or you acquired it. It is an asset that brings in money, but it's not money that you can take out unless you sell the actual business. Number 4, you are paying off debt or you are saving for an asset. When I say saving for an asset, that can be for a home, that can be for a car, that can be to acquire a business, and also that asset can be you. Going to better yourself, like going to school, getting a certification, going to trade school, going to college, that is something that is beneficial because you are your biggest asset. Even though I talk a lot about money, I still believe you as a person are the biggest asset, and a lot of things we ought to be doing is propelling ourselves as an asset and protecting ourselves as an asset. So if you have money, or not if you have money, but if your money is to saving for an investment, you're not as broke as you think you are, because that $500, $1,000 a month, you could spend that on going out to eat and vacation and jewelry, but you are delaying your gratification so you can acquire an asset. Another thing is paying off debt. Debt is terrible, and I think we're finding that out, especially in 2025, because we're being squeezed out of the fun things because debt is coming for us, or it's coming for us in the sense of the things that we need, like our bills to live. Those companies are running more out of us. So the thought of getting rid of debt so we can free more money, so we can have more extra money for ourselves, should be attractive. So don't feel bad if you're in that situation where you are deciding to get rid of that debt, because you are ultimately making yourself better and you aren't owing to anybody or anything. And number 5 is you have investments that you choose not to touch. This means you have money, but for whatever reason, you know it's in your best interest not to touch it unless for emergencies. Number 1 thing that comes to mind is you have an emergency fund. If you have an emergency fund, and you've said that it's not going to go below this amount, then you're not going to take that money out and go get your hair done and get your nails done. That is for said emergency. Also, if you have a brokerage account, that $200 a month, $300 a month, $50 a month that you put into the brokerage account, you could easily go to the movies with that money, but you are deciding you're not going to touch it because your value system is set where that is for later, and you value that a little bit more than the pleasantries of today. And that's where I kind of find myself, and I'm sure if you're watching this video, you have thought that way too. It's like, I want to do some fabulous things, but I still don't value those fabulous things as much as what I'm doing for my future. So in going over these few things, if most or all do not resonate with you, then I would say it's probably time to pull out that budget, because that does mean that your money's probably not enough for what you need to live. there are several budgets out there. The one that I subscribe to the most lately is the 50-30-21, where 50% of the money is spent on your needs, 30% is spent on your wants, and 20% is either put into savings, investment, or both. That is, I think, a good starting point to figure out where you're at. If after doing the budget and you find that the money is not reaching to where it needs to be, then there are some things that we can talk about in another video. But a budget is where you start if these things aren't resonating with you. So in going back to the drawing board, or realizing you don't and you're actually resonating with these things that make you realize that, no, I'm actually not doing so bad, it is perfectly normal for you to feel like sometimes it's like, dang, where is my money at? You know, because it's hard not to see your peers around you doing things and you make the same amount of money. So it's like, what's going on over here? Like, you know, it's not happening over there, but it's not happening over here. And why is it not happening over here? That is completely normal. And now you can probably see more than not that you are actually not poor. You are just a little bit broke, and you are broke because your money is tied up to your values, and you're probably going to be in this situation for about 1, if you're lucky, to honestly like 5 years. Like, these are periods where like they're transition periods and you are focused on building for yourself. And in that building period, it's not always pretty. So if that's where you are, go ahead and type that down in the comments for me. Broke, but not poor. And it's also a good time to remember that we have what it takes to reach our financial goals. Thank you so much again for hanging out with me this week, and I will see you guys next week. Talk to you later. Bye.